Okay, well, now that I got my phone off, I'll call the meeting to order. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda for today. Dan moves the agenda for April 12th, 2022. All those in favor? Carried. Minutes. Any discussion regarding the minutes from the March 8th, 2022 Municipal Planning Commission meeting? Michelle moves approval of the minutes from March 8th, 2022. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, so our first contestant this morning is at 10:15, so I guess we'll look at first the development applications for viewing. Any questions, discussions, concern regarding those viewings?
On page 54, I know that. And they want to move, I don't know if it's a development permit or if it's coming afterwards. Where they want, oh, no, never mind. It's later. I found it.
You get agenda points.
Oh, yay.
Okay, we've still got some time. Let's jump to the planner's report for April 2022. I assume we've all reviewed those. Any questions or discussion regarding the planner's report? Does the planner have any input regarding the report?
No, just the planner's report is presented for information. It's a little bit scarce this time around, just lots of land use bylaw work with our team and also working with the wind energy developers, so it's been busy.
Okay, I'll entertain a movement to accept the report as presented. Lloyd moves approval of the planner's report as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Fortunately, there's enough to carry every single one so far. Okay. Right. Land use amendments. Any discussion regarding the land use amendments that have been approved by council?
Just maybe an item to bring to the Planning Commission's attention for Bylaw 2022-06. There was an application that was submitted by Benchmarks on behalf of UFA, and they were proposing at the time a 6-lot highway commercial subdivision that was outside of the Dunmore hamlet boundary, meaning that they wouldn't be required to hook up to hamlet water supply. So we have the Tri-Area IDP, we have the Gasoline Area Structure Plan, and we also have the Dunmore Master Area Structure Plan that says as development continues further east, that the hamlet of Dunmore boundary will be extended to accommodate future growth and servicing to those developments. So as part of the land use bylaw public hearing next Tuesday, council will also be considering a extension to the hamlet of Dunmore boundary, which would then trigger the requirement for UFA to hook up to the hamlet water supply, and would also trigger the requirement to pay the Dunmore offsite levy. So if that does happen, those will be considerations that come forward to the Planning Commission as part of the subdivision consideration. So just a heads up on that.
As of right now, it ends at the 120, right?
Correct.
So their development is proposed on the other side, so
correct.
That's why. So it would just go to their boundary, be extended to their boundary, or would it be extended further?
Just to their boundary at this point.
To their east boundary, okay.
Yeah, and the intent of the area structure plan was that the continuation east would be gradual, so we'd look first at an extension of 3rd Avenue and then extend gradually, but we all know that sometimes development kind of hopscotches. So yeah, they kind of skipped over that area just looking for a suitable location to place that. So it does kind of increase the timeline on that a little bit.
So are they looking to put their agro center and their bulk fuel and everything in that site then?
Correct. And then the potential for 5 other lots that they would subdivide and then sell off to other developers. Hopscotch. Hopscotch.
Whole 30th.
Bright and
Whole
see
of
brain, yeah.
30th Street's moving to Dunmore.
I think we discussed just finishing off that quarter instead of following the 120. We're
Yeah.
gonna pull the boundary out, finish out that quarter.
That's Warren Faleski's, is it not?
It was titled to Warren Valesky. Yeah, so the intent is that UFA will subdivide off the portion that's highlighted on that drawing.
Yeah.
They'd purchase that portion, and then I believe the remainder would stay with Valesky.
So has there been a survey and that's been, and a title on that parcel? No.
Not yet, not till the subdivision comes forward.
So they've got a purchase agreement based on a proposed subdivision. Gotcha. Okay, I don't do any discussion around the land use amendment for the Bull Trail Energy Center. And nothing, okay. And the new bylaw proposal, I guess we're still in, first reading's been done on the new bylaw?
Yeah, so the first reading's been granted, and the public hearing will be next Tuesday at the Eagle Butte High School at 1 o'clock.
That'll be the most exciting bylaw public meeting I think we've ever had in the county. Right? We got a couple, but this one's shaping up to be a good one. I think so. We'll be top 5. Okay, so we need a motion for the land use amendments. No. Jeremy, do you have any questions or discussion here? We're not excluding you intentionally. Jeremy? He's in that Bermuda Triangle in Saskatchewan there.
I can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear us? Okay.
But you're right, it is the Bermuda Triangle out here. So I'm gonna be, I'm catching some of it and some of that.
Okay. If you miss something, just please speak up and we'll try to reiterate.
Sounds good to me, thanks.
Okay, is somebody here to represent Keys to Hope Counseling Services? One of you ladies, sorry. Can you please come up and take one of the chairs in the front? Okay, so this is development application 12/25, Keys to Hope Counseling Services. Kayleen, do you want to go ahead? Oh, no, Becky, sorry, Becky, I knew that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So development application 22/25, and the applicant is Keys to Hope Counseling Services. This is located at Plan 111174, Block 1, Lot 3. And there's two municipal addresses at this property. It's 13528 Range Road 63 and 6307 Township Road 140. The property size is 158.51 acres and it is zoned Agricultural District 2. The proposal is to operate a counseling and wellness services business called Keys to Hope Counseling Services. The applicant is proposing a business, Keys to Hope Counseling Services, in Cypress County for the Municipal Planning Commission's consideration that specializes in counseling and wellness services. This is a specially designed program that utilizes nature and animals to assist with therapy for individuals, couples, groups, children, and youth for mental health and wellness. As the letter of intent states, Keys to Hope Counseling Services currently operates in Medicine Hat and is proposing to expand the business to Cypress County. The business has been in operation since 2013 and currently has 10 employees. The proposed location is an opportunity to expand the therapeutic services as it provides an existing barn and corrals to allow interaction with animals, and the landscape provides grounding and safety for their clients. It is expected that clients could range from 1 to 10 per day, with group sessions on occasional weekends, seeing 12 per group. Hours of operation are anticipated to be 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday to Friday, and the occasional weekend. The applicant has indicated that they will have 3 off-site employees at this location, and no advertising sign is required at this time. There are currently 2 residences contained on the property. The intent is that both structures will be utilized for living accommodations as well as office and client spaces. In the Land Use Bylaw 2018-04 under A2 General Agriculture, counseling services is not listed as a use. Therefore, the Municipal Planning Commission needs to consider if the use is consistent with the definition or general purpose of the land use district. The general purpose of the Agricultural District 2 is to permit activities associated with primary production of agricultural goods and services, and to strengthen the agricultural character of this district. In Cypress County Strategic Plan, Goal 5 says Cypress County focuses on economic growth, sustainability, and diversification, and Strategy 3 is to promote the county as a destination for business growth and expansion. I circulated this application just to Public Works, and they had no comments on the application. And then I've got some pictures to show you of the property. So this is at the corner of the Township Road 140 and Range Road 63. So you can see both residences in this shot, one to the left there and one further out. This one closer will be for primary living and some office space, and the one farther out is where the animals and corrals and barn are located. And just a closer look at this first residence and the neighboring property looking southwest. And this is from Township Road 140 looking back east at that residence. And now we're looking south into the second residence and proposed session area. And this is within that yard looking north out to Township Road 140. And this is that second existing residence. And just where the corral area is looking west. And I think that's it. More. So if I move on to my recommendation, it is to approve development permit application 22/25, subject to the following conditions and with the understanding the business will be operated as outlined in the submitted application. Any changes to the business must be submitted for approval by the Development Officer or Municipal Planning Commission. And Mr. Chairman, 1 through 3 are standard conditions, so if I jump to number 4, it is no signs will be permitted without prior approval by Cypress County. Number 5, hours of operation are Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Number 6, subject to 3 off-site employees. And number 7, subject to annual review. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Becky. Would the applicant like to speak to their application at this point?
Sorry, Dina. There's just in front of you, there's a gray box with a button for you to push just to activate your microphone.
Okay, that's me. Okay. Sorry, just was introducing myself as Dina West, co-owner of Keys to Hope Counseling Services, and Alicia Franks, my business partner, as well as co-owner of Keys to Hope Counseling Services. I'm also the owner of the property in question. If I may just address quickly, I just wrote out some things that we sort of had an idea of around the property that might help.
Just before you start, Jeremy, can you hear the applicant? So just so you
Yeah,
know.
loud and clear.
Okay, good, all right,
Okay.
good. So we can all hear you. Go
Okay,
on.
thank you. Keys to Hope Counseling Services has always been about providing hope to our clients. We are excited to continue this with the addition of the property we have fondly nicknamed Healing Grounds. Through programs such as nature-assisted therapy, we will guide clients to plant their own seeds of hope for learning, growth, and recovery in mental wellness. Healing Grounds truly provides opportunity to cultivate and increase resiliency in a holistic manner, an approach that addresses personal, psychological, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, all part of an individual's healing journey. As many of you know, time on land is healing. From the ground, dirt, and soil that we walk on to the animals we care for, time in nature is its own therapeutic, has its own therapeutic qualities. The open space allows for quiet time that activates our senses in no way an office visit could do. Our hope is to utilize land in harmony with healing and growth, to provide tools to people to promote optimal well-being. This includes offering intensive therapy, targeted workshops, holistic wellness activities, and animal-assisted therapy. We ask that you join us in this journey to create a space to motivate and expand the strength, courage, and power of our communities for collective wellness. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any input from, or questions from Planning Commission? Go ahead, Lloyd.
I was just wondering what kind of animals you're gonna have out there.
Currently, we have horses out there. We hope to incorporate some goats, possibly donkeys, and maybe some chickens. Just regular farm animals. We're not, going exotic with elephants or giraffes or anything.
My wife got goats. It didn't help my mental.
Come for goat yoga.
All right, anything else? A question, how many people per day? Okay, so you say you have 10 staff members currently?
Yeah, 10 in total in our town office. That doesn't mean that all staff members would be out there. We currently have 4 trained in animal-assisted therapy. Our hope is to train, obviously, some more therapists in that. But again, we know as we sort of grow, it's not going to be 10 people out there all at once, 10 therapists all at once. It's going to be one at a time, one client, one day a week, and then hoping to build that. And as we continue to build and grow, then we would look at expanding the business as well too. But right now we're just looking at, realistically, we probably won't even have 10 people a day. That I went high with that to try and maybe in a year's time have some accumulation for growth.
So now you said something about group activities. How many people would you expect for a group activity on any given day?
Yeah, so as mentioned, in a group activity, we might have 12 participants. That would be like a Friday and a Saturday, Friday evening and a Saturday day, typically for an intensive therapy or, again, just sort of that group setting.
So 10 vehicles kind of thing coming in for that?
Possibly, yeah.
Plus staff?
Yeah, yeah, possibly. So I currently live on the residence, and then depending on the staff that would be coming in. And again, if it's a group, it would probably be 2 facilitators or 2 therapists, and then clients that would join the group.
Michelle, go ahead.
There's lots of room for parking out there for 10, 12 vehicles.
Tons of parking, and as far as traffic goes, the main entrance we'll be using is the township road and down to the trailer into the barn, where people could park, and that's the activity area that we would be utilizing, so it doesn't actually impact neighbors other than I can see a vehicle down there, which is however many acres away. So
That's what I was wondering, because that your neighbors looked like they were fairly close to the residence I'm assuming you live in?
Yes,
And
yeah.
most of the activity will be happening in that back residence?
Yeah, at the barn and the, yeah. Corrals.
Dan, go ahead.
Public Works didn't have any problems with the approach or anything like that. We do have recommendations for businesses on approaches, so we're not looking at it with this one.
I didn't receive any comments from them on that. I mean, it might be an option to, I could add back in
My question is, we make businesses do it, so maybe that should be in there in case future, if it takes off for them and they're really busy out there, we could end up with a problem with the approach or with access.
So I think Becky still has to go through her recommended conditions. I don't think she's gone through them yet, but I think one of the conditions she's got on there is perhaps annual review. So maybe Becky, you can go through the conditions and we can go from there.
No, I read them, but I can go over them again if you want. The last one is annual review, yes.
It's pregnancy brain. It's just today.
I think annual review would allow us to reevaluate if the business has grown. We could look at those items in a year and see if Public Works has any concerns with the traffic.
That's my only concern is in the future. If you get a good business going out there, we make other businesses look at traffic assessments and everything else. So I know it's out further and out in the middle of nowhere, but
Absolutely.
something we need to look at.
Were you looking at any signage?
Not initially. I mean, at first was going to include that in our application, but I don't want to commit to all these things if our business isn't going to run. Like, we have to do some advertising and getting people out there, but again, it's going to be how things go. So looking at maybe down the road in a year's time, and if we were going to do signage, it wouldn't be huge. It would just be markers to state this is the property you're looking for. So just the name of the business and perhaps Healing Grounds on that.
Go ahead, Becky.
And we did discuss a sign, and under the home occupation section in the land use bylaw, it does allow for a small, I think it's a 10 square foot sign on the gate if they wanted. And then we just talked about, and condition number 4 says any signs must be approved, so.
Okay. Lloyd move? Okay. With conditions as presented? Okay. So Lloyd moves in favor of development application 22/25 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? I'm looking at Jeremy, see if he's going to say anything. Opposed? Carried. Okay. So your development permit has been approved subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there's now a 3-week appeal period. The public may appeal the issuance of this permit. The development permit will be advertised in the Cypress Courier newspaper for 3 consecutive weeks. If no appeal is filed within 21 days from the date of issue, the development permit will become valid at that time. If you have any further questions, you may contact the development officer to discuss them after today's meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Appreciate your time.
Oh, I know a place you can get goats if you need some. Free. No. I'm trying to pawn my goats off. Actually, I don't, she's done with goats. So. Anyways, it's irrelevant. Yeah, they taste really good. Okay, so our next applicant, Michael Teleski, is that you, sir? Can you take one of the tables or the chairs up front here at this table? There is a button that you can press to talk, and we'll move on. So we have development application 22/27, Michael Teleski. Go ahead, Becky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you said, development application 22/27. The applicant is Michael Taliski. This is located at Plan 3495 HP, Block 6, Lot 6A to 10A at 133 South Railway Avenue in Urban. Property size is 1,570.70 meters squared, and it is zoned hamlet commercial. The proposal is to operate a transportation business called Captain Charters, utilizing the existing building and yard for business operations and living accommodations. The applicant is proposing a business in Cypress County for the Municipal Planning Commission's consideration that specializes in limousine and shuttle bus services. The intent is to utilize the property for the storage of buses in the yard and shop, as well as utilize the building as a mixed-use office and residential. The business is proposed to be located in an existing shop and fenced yard in the hamlet of Urban. As the letter of intent states, it is anticipated that the storage of transportation vehicles will be inside the existing building. The applicant has indicated that the interior building would be renovated to expand the office space and to construct a suite for the purpose of living accommodations. Captain Charters generally operates on the weekends for weddings, stags, and stagette parties, birthdays, tours, and more. The applicant has indicated that the building will not be open to the public and no advertising sign is required at this time. In the land use bylaw in the Hamlet Commercial District, a mixed-use building is considered a Class 2 discretionary use, requiring approval from the Municipal Planning Commission. Under the Urban Area Structure Plan, under Commercial Development Policies, it states that mixed-use buildings combining commercial uses on the main level and residential uses above will be allowed. And I did circulate the application, and I circulated to CP Rail, and they replied that they have no comments. Alberta Transportation replied that a permit will not be required for the proposed development. Cypress County Public Works replied that they have no comments, and Cypress County Utilities replied that they have no concerns or comments. I also circulated to Cypress County Fire Services, and they replied that they have reviewed the application and have no concerns with the proposed development. So I can move into some pictures. So this is looking to the north on Christie Street, and that's the existing shop and yard that you're looking at. And then just straight on at the building from Christie Street looking to the west. And so this is at the corner of Christie Street and South Railway Avenue with Highway 1 to the south there. And then from the other end of the property looking east down South Railway Avenue at the back of the building. And then just another shot of the yard and building looking to the south. So if I move on to my recommendation, it is to approve development permit application 22/27, subject to the following conditions and with the understanding the business will be operated as outlined in the submitted application. Any changes to the business must be submitted for approval by the Development Officer or Municipal Planning Commission. And numbers 1 through 5 are standard conditions, so I'll jump to number 6, which is no signs will be permitted without prior approval by Cypress County. Number 7, it is the developer's responsibility to enter into a road use agreement where required by Cypress County Public Works. And number 8, subject to annual review. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Becky. Mr. Teleski, would you like to speak to your application at this time?
Everything that was outlined was perfect, so.
Yeah, open the floor to discussion or motions from Planning Commission. I think it's tremendous use of property in urban. It's good to see business coming back. Okay, Dan moves approval of 22/27 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. See, development permit has been approved subject to meeting conditions which were previously discussed. The county will mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there is now a 3-week appeal period that the public may appeal the issues of this permit. The development permit will be advertised in the Cypress Courier newspaper for 3 consecutive weeks. If no appeal is filed within 21 days from the date of issue, the development permit will become valid at that time. If you have any questions, you can contact the development officer after today's meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Feedback. If we only had some dividers would stop that feedback. I'm going to start a plexiglass reclamation company. I think I'll be very busy. All right, so we got some apiaries coming up next. I guess they're going to be attending, as far as you know. They will be here. That was bad, eh? I hope this isn't a sticky one. How many what? Goats? Actually, we just got rid of them. My wife has moved on to sheep now. We sold them. Didn't eat them. You should see what happens when you put them on Kijiji, though. She put them on Kijiji, and within an hour, she had a dozen calls and contacts. It's amazing. It's unbelievable.
I would love.
Yeah.
See the side of my truck.
Oh, really?
I think people who want goats have never had a goat, or never had any
They
experience with a goat.
Yeah, they serve their intent.
I don't want goats. I know what goats are like. There is no way in the world. I'll cut my own damn grass.
They actually are a pretty lucrative livestock. They made more money than our commercial cattle.
They might, but they're awful to creatures. Them things.
Yeah. There's more profit in them than there's cattle.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
No. She did make goat cheese, though. It was good. Oh, yeah. So, about 6. But what we'd do is she'd have them so they kidded when we were calving. So any twins, we'd just put the goat up on a stand, and the calf, any extra calves would suck off the goats. And calves will never scour from goat milk. So it was good. But yeah, they served the purpose. Yeah, while Jolene made cheese, it was fantastic. Yes. Oh.
Did you guys mute me or did I lose the connection?
Sorry, were you interested in that conversation, Jeremy? What is your radio not
No,
working?
it was just getting good.
Jeremy, we're just waiting for our next applicant. They're scheduled for 10:45.
Okay, sounds good. You guys can put me on the outside again until that time.
for Pullman Apiaries. Okay.
Speak into your mic so that one's online.
There's a button on the side there that says talk, so when requested, just press that button if you can. Yep. Okay, so we have development application 22/35. Go ahead, Becky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So development application 2235, the applicant is Pullman Apiaries, and this is located at Southwest 8117 west of the 4th. The municipal address is 11109 Range Road 75. Property size is 161 acres, and it is zoned Agricultural District 2, and the proposal is to move on a second residence for the purpose of the existing business. The applicant is requesting the Municipal Planning Commission's consideration to move on an additional dwelling unit onto the property. The intent is to utilize the proposed dwelling unit for 2 seasonal workers to reside in. The proposal results in 2 residences being on the property. In 2008, Development Permit 08/178 was issued for the construction and operation of a honey extraction facility, including living quarters for seasonal workers within the facility. Pullman Apiaries Limited keeps several thousand bee colonies in Cypress County for pollination of canola and honey production. As the letter of intent indicates, the proposed dwelling unit will allow for 2 additional seasonal workers to reside on the property for business purposes. Seasonal workers are typically residing on the property from March 15th to October 15th, while full staff is there from May 15th to September 15th annually. Minimal staff reside on the property over the winter months. In the Land Use Bylaw 2018-04, under Agricultural District 2, a second or additional dwelling unit is considered a Class 2 discretionary use, requiring Municipal Planning Commission approval. So I did circulate the application, and Cypress County Public Works replied that they have no comments, and Westside Water Co-op has replied that they are unable to provide water to the new structure. The co-op understands that the county's agreement with the city provides for 1 single residence per service. The applicant holds 1 service with the co-op that is presently providing water to an on-site residence. The rural utilities legislation prohibits the co-op from splitting services. So I do have some pictures for you. And I risked my life here because there's a lot of bees. So this is at the existing residence looking east, and you can see the shop off to the left there. And just to look at Range Road 75 to the north. And then this is right in the yard, so this is the shop that's utilized for the business, and we're looking east. And the new building, the proposed structure is located on the property, so you'll see in some pictures coming up. And Mr. Pullman just said they wouldn't hook up or place it permanently until they had approval. So this is looking south, the residence there next door. So this is in behind the shop. We're looking north, and that's the proposed dwelling unit for the workers. And just another kind of look there. And then just look back west, or looking back west at Range Road 75. So I will move on to my recommendation, and it is option 1 is to approve development permit application 22/35, subject to the following conditions, and with the understanding that the residence will be moved on as outlined in the submitted application. Any changes must be submitted for approval by the development officer or Municipal Planning Commission. So numbers 1 through 9 are standard conditions, and I'll jump to number 10, which is also standard, sorry. It is the developer's responsibility to enter into a road use agreement where required by Cypress County Public Works. And I also have a second option today, and that is to refuse development application 2235, as the proposal would not strengthen the agricultural character of the A2 General Agricultural District. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Becky. Would the applicant like to speak to his application at this point? Okay. So this unit's pretty much self-contained, right? It would have self-contained sewage and water tank and, by the looks of it, am I correct? And that's how you intend to utilize it?
Yes. Except for water, we will have to ship the water.
Right,
So
okay. Okay. So do you do off-site sales at that facility there? Or do you have a retail component to this business? No? Oh, okay. Dan, go ahead.
I don't have a problem with it. Do we put something in here that if the business ever sells or that doesn't stay as a residence on the property?
Yeah, we could add a condition to enter into a development agreement that that residence is removed if the business is ever sold. Is that where you're getting at? Yep.
Or discontinue, yeah. That's a good one. So you're aware and in agreement with the conditions as presented?
yes, I am.
Okay. So where do you market your honey? Like, is it, you market in bulk then? Is that how?
Yes, it's all in bulk.
Oh, okay. Okay. Darn, because I was going to stop by the other day and see if I could buy some honey, but I was driving by. My wife said, "Hey, there's honey there." I said, "Oh, you're talking my language. All right. Have you got that drafted, Becky?
So it is the developer's responsibility to enter into a development agreement with Cypress County for the removal of the second residence if the business is sold or discontinued. Development agreement will be registered on the Alberta land title.
Okay, does that suit needs? All right, I'll entertain a motion. Nigel? Okay, so Nigel moves approval of 22/35 with conditions as presented, amended conditions as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So your development permit has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which are presented today. The county will mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there's now a 3-week appeal period that the public may appeal the issuance of this permit. The permit will be advertised in the Cypress Courier newspaper for a duration of 3 consecutive weeks. If there's no appeal filed within 21 days of the issuance of the permit, the development permit will become valid at that time. If you have any questions, you can contact Becky today after today's meeting to discuss them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Chairman, we're not expecting the applicant for 22CY02, so we could jump into that subdivision if you like.
Let's do that. Okay, so that's Dubo, 22CY02. Go
You
ahead.
bet. Okay, subdivision application 22CY02 is submitted by Danny DeBow on behalf of DeBow Ranch Limited. The application is intended to subdivide a 6.3 hectare or 15.56 acres agricultural parcel for the purposes of creating a farmstead separation for the existing residence and yard site. The remainder of the agricultural title contains an irrigation pivot and is 160 acres in size, and there are no oil or gas wells within 100 meters of the proposed subdivision. The subdivision area contains the applicant's existing residence, farm building, septic tile field, and water well that is utilized for domestic purposes. The applicant also proposes to include a vacant area to the east. This area contains topography challenges, including coulees, which slope east towards the South Saskatchewan River. Area is proposed to be contained within the boundaries of the proposed subdivision to alleviate potential access issues in the future when land ownership changes. However, the lands would not be suitable for future development. In addition, the quarter section has been identified by Alberta Culture and Tourism under the Historical Resources Act as having a high potential to contain either an archaeological or paleontological resource. Proposed subdivision gains direct and immediate access from an existing approach from Township Road 130, and the remainder of the agricultural title does not have an access approach. Therefore, the Municipal Planning Commission, as a condition of subdivision approval, may need to consider a subdivision approval condition for the installation of approach to the remnant lands. The proposed subdivision will result in the first title to be taken out of the quarter section. A residence could be developed on the remainder of the agricultural title, and the subdivision is located outside of the IDP boundaries. So South Saskatchewan Regional Plan states that municipalities are to identify their agricultural land and limit fragmentation and conversion to non-agricultural uses. Under the implementation section of the plan, Section 5, Efficient Use of Land, it states that the land use framework promotes approaches to reduce the amount of land taken up by permanent or long-term development by utilizing the minimum amount of land necessary. Section 663 of the Municipal Government Act states that a subdivision authority may not require the owner of a parcel of land subject of a subdivision to provide reserve if one lot is to be created from a quarter section. Part 2.9 Road Access of the Subdivision Regulation states that every proposed subdivision must provide direct access to a road or lawful means of access satisfactory to the subdivision authority. And Part 5.1 Application Referrals states that the Deputy Minister of the Minister responsible for the Historical Resources Act must be referred to if any of the land that is subject of an application is adjacent to or contains either wholly or partially land identified in the Historical Resources listing maintained by the Minister. Section 4.1.21, Land Use Policies of the Municipal Development Plan, states that the county may support the subdivision of an existing farmstead if the following conditions are met. So the agricultural parcel remains the balance of the quarter section. Subdivision will not impact or hinder the agricultural use on the balance of the quarter. And the subdivision parcel size for an existing farmstead is based on the area incorporating the farm dwelling and accessory buildings and structures, unless there are physical or topographic features which define a large, more practical parcel. Subdivision of the existing farmstead or single vacant parcel retain the same agricultural land use district as the remnant, and both the existing farmstead or single vacant parcel and remnant agricultural parcel have direct access or a shared easement to the existing municipal road. Section 7, Natural Environment and of the Historical Resources of the Municipal Development Plan, state that the county should consider taking areas around water bodies, steep or unstable slopes, or other sensitive lands as environmental reserve to ensure appropriate management and preservation. And utility easements may be required. I did take a few pictures of the yard site for this one, just because of the topography out there. So this is looking at Township Road 130. So at the entrance to Mr. DeBoe's yard site, the road allowance does come to a dead end. You can see the approach going into the yard site there. This is the private access drive and also looking to the northeast. Just another view from the road allowance. You can see how the coulee slopes towards the east. This is looking at the existing rear property line of the yard site. And just another view. And then this would be looking east towards the slope of the coulees towards the river down below. And just another view there. So when we circulated the application, Cypress County Finances replied that there are no local improvement plans associated with the property. Director of Municipal Services replied that the proposed subdivision complies with Section 4.1.21 of the Municipal Development Plan. Therefore, the subdivision warrants approval consideration subject to the planner's recommendation that the developer provide an access approach along Township Road 130, so either the current or future owner has the ability to gain direct immediate access to the agricultural lands. TELUS replied that they have no objection, and Fortis replied that they're the distribution wire service provider for the area and no easement is required. So my recommendation is approval, Mr. Chairman, subject to 3 conditions. Condition number 1, the developer is required to enter into a municipal services agreement with the county for the construction of a road approach to provide direct and immediate access from Township Road 130 to the remainder of the agricultural title. And the agreement is to be executed and registered in conjunction with the subdivision at Alberta Land Titles. Number 2, the developer is required to obtain a clearance or any necessary approvals from Alberta Culture and Tourism as a requirement under the Historical Resources Act. The clearance and or approvals are to be submitted to the county prior to the subdivision's registration. And condition number 3 is the generic condition for the developer to supply copies of any utility right-of-way plans, easements, or agreements. That is my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Open the floor to discussion. I have one concern. It appears that pivot, looking at the pivot tracks, it appears that the one track may traverse the top northwest corner of that parcel. Did you see that when you were out there? You see what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, there may be a portion.
Well, I mean, if you want to inhibit the agricultural production of the, remaining parcel, that would do it. So that's the question I would have for the applicant.
So we can maybe look at an additional condition that requires the applicant to verify that there will be no encroachment of the irrigation pivot into the proposed subdivision. And then if there are, that the planner has the ability to make a minor variation to the subdivision plan if there is an encroachment. That would allow the surveyor to go out and actually map the irrigation pivot and verify.
Because you can't tell, it looks like wheel tracks, but it could be, even if it is the overhang. If the overhang, we can't have the overhang running across that acreage either. So, okay, that sounds good to me. Okay, so Dan moves approval of subdivision application 22CY02 with amended conditions as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are you the Alharts? Okay, can you take the chairs up front, please? Or so before we begin, if you wish to talk at any point, you can press the blue-gray button on there to talk and then speak into the mic. We have one of the Planning Commission members that is remotely in the meeting, so it's essential that you speak into that. Thank you. Okay, so we have subdivision application 22CY03. Go ahead, Kayleen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Subdivision application 22CY03 is submitted by Mark and Amy Elhart, who we have with us here today. The application is intended to subdivide a 2.5 hectare or 6.18 acre parcel containing an existing residence and yard from a previously subdivided quarter section to create a separate title. The remainder of the agricultural title contains dry land pasture and is 154.02 acres in size. Property is located along Township Road 120, approximately 0.6 kilometers west of Range Road 40. There are no oil or gas wells within 100 meters of the proposed subdivision. The subdivision area contains the applicant's residence and yard site. There is also an existing country residential farmstead separation parcel contained within the quarter section further to the east. In 2015, the applicants were issued a development permit for the construction of a 3,000 square foot shop. The shop exceeds the maximum building size of 2,400 square feet in the Country Residential 2 district. Therefore, the Planning Commission, as a condition of subdivision approval, will be required to consider a size relaxation for this shop. Proposed subdivision gains direct and immediate access from an existing approach off Township Road 120. Remainder of the agricultural title currently appears to not have an access approach constructed, however has the ability to access from either Township 120 or Range Road 40. Cypress County Council recently approved a land use reclassification to Country Residential District 2 to allow the proposed subdivision to be in compliance with the Municipal Development Plan policies. The proposed subdivision will result in the final title that is eligible to be subdivided from the quarter section, and a residence could still be developed on the remainder of the agricultural title, and the subdivision is located outside of the tri-area IDP boundaries. The South Saskatchewan Regional Plan states that municipalities are to identify their agricultural land and limit fragmentation and conversion to non-agricultural uses. Under the implementation section of the plan, Section 5, Efficient Use of Land, it states that the land use framework promotes approaches to reduce the amount of land taken up by permanent or long-term development by utilizing the minimum amount of land necessary. Section 661 of the Municipal Government Act states that the owner of a parcel of land subject of a subdivision must provide without compensation to the Crown and Right of Alberta or a municipality land for roads and public utilities. Section 6661 of the Municipal Government Act states that a subdivision authority may require the owner of a parcel of land subject of a subdivision to provide reserve. Part 29 road access of the subdivision regulation states that every proposed subdivision must provide direct access to a road or lawful means of access satisfactory to the subdivision authority. Section 4.1 Development in agricultural areas of the county's Municipal Development Plan states to better protect agricultural land and preserve it for agricultural purposes, to give priority to agriculture as the most important economic activity in the municipality, and to limit the impact of fragmenting agricultural land for non-ag purposes while balancing the demand for rural lifestyles. Section 4.1.23 Subdivision Residential states that the county may support additional subdivision of an existing parcel or a single vacant parcel if the following conditions are met. The parcels are redistricted to the appropriate country residential land use district. The country residential parcel conforms to the applicable residential regulations in the land use bylaw. Subdivision will not impact or hinder the agricultural use on the balance of the quarter section, and all parcels have direct access to the existing municipal road network or provincial highway. Section 6.1.4, Transportation Networks and Infrastructure, states that the county should acquire lands to create sufficient right-of-way to enable future roadway expansion where necessary or identified in a transportation master plan. And the Country Residential 2 District of the Land Use Bylaw states an accessory building shall not exceed 2,400 square feet in area, and the maximum floor area for all accessory buildings shall be 4,000 square feet. When we circulated the application, Cypress County Finances replied that there are no local improvement plans. Director of Municipal Services replied that the subdivision complies with Section 4.1.21 of the Municipal Development Plan and therefore warrants subdivision approval consideration. Fortis Alberta replied that they are the distribution wire service provider for the area. No easement is required. Equus replied that the subdivision is outside of their service area. TELUS replied that they have no objection. And the Cypress County Assessor provided a market value assessment rate of $16,941.19 per hectare for money in place of municipal reserve purposes. And we did receive a comment from Cypress County Public Works, and they replied that a new access approach is required to the agricultural lands. So my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is approval subject to 4 conditions. Number 1, the developer is required to make a payment to the county for money in place of reserve for 2.5 hectares at a rate of $1,694.12 per hectare, being 10% of the appraised market value of $16,941.19 per hectare. And the payment is to be submitted to the county prior to the subdivision's registration. Number 2, the developer is required to obtain approval from Cypress County Public Works for the construction of a new access approach. I understand that the L-Harts are already in process with that. Number 3 is a size relaxation of 600 square feet for the existing detached shop. And number 4, the developer is required to supply copies of any utility right-of-way plans, easements, or agreements. And that is just a standard condition attached to all subdivisions. And that is my report.
Thank you, Kayleen. Mark or Amy, would you like to speak to your application at this time?
You bet. Basically, the main purpose of this application is for estate planning. We just want to ensure that the where we live is pulled out of this particular quarter section just for future. We're third generation of this quarter, and we just always want to keep it in the family. So if something ever happens to us, that, you know, our house area could be sold, whatever, but everything else is kind of is left for, you know, in the family. So that's kind of the whole idea behind it all for this. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Open the floor to discussion. That seems like the only thing that country can grow right now is acreages, eh?
Yeah.
Moving it? Okay. Lloyd moves in favor of subdivision application 22 CY03 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So your subdivision has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will now mail you a copy of your subdivision approval. You're advised to begin working towards completing the necessary conditions to make arrangements to have the approved subdivided area surveyed if you have not already done so. You have 1 year from the subdivision's approval date to have met all of the approval conditions and to have the survey plan submitted to Alberta Land Titles by your surveyor for the registration of the separate title. If you have any further questions today, you may contact the planner to discuss them. Thank you very much. Yeah. All righty. Moving along quite nicely today. So we got Dunmore Solar at 11:30 is our next. Anything you want to address in the meantime that we already haven't? Okay. Okay, we'll have a 5-minute recess. Kayleen probably needs it again, right? 5-minute recess, yeah. Okay, so we have everyone online and everyone that's going to be presenting live here. Okay, so this is development application 21/262 and 21/263, Dunmore Solar. Becky, you'll be speaking to this. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And maybe before I start my report, I'll just have the attendees introduce themselves that are here with Dunmore Solar. And just so you guys know, there is a talk button in front of you that you need to use, yeah.
Good morning, my name is Jennifer Trachel. I'm with Ascent Energy Partners, and Ascent Energy was retained by the original owner of Dunmore Solar to do the development for the project. The original owner was Horace Energy. The project's since been purchased by a joint venture between TerraLight and Green Cells. I'll let Thomas speak to that a little bit more, but my role in the project is that I've been the development project manager and will be probably up until construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Robert Henry. I'm also with Ascent. I support Jennifer on technical and contracting matters.
Okay, thank you very much. Jeremy, are you online?
Still here, guys. Yeah, I heard all that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Becky.
Okay. So development applications 21/262 and 21/263. The applicant is Dunmore Solar Incorporated. The legal descriptions and property sizes are outlined in a table further in the report because there were a couple different properties. The existing land use classification of all of them is Agricultural District 2, and the proposal is to construct and operate a solar facility, including the construction of a substation and temporary laydown yards. Dunmore Solar Inc. is requesting approval from the Municipal Planning Commission to construct and operate a solar facility. The project includes placement of solar arrays, the construction of a 100 by 100 substation, as well as numerous temporary laydown yards. The proposed location is approximately 10 kilometers northeast of the hamlet of Dunmore, east of Highway 41, along Township Road 130. The Dunmore Solar Project is a 216 megawatt alternating current solar project that is estimated to generate close to 375 gigawatt hours of electricity per year. The on-site equipment will consist of approximately 515,136 photovoltaic modules, a fixed tilt racking system, 82 inverter transformer stations, an underground collector system, an operations trailer, internal access roads, and perimeter fencing. The proposed facility will connect to an existing AltaLink transmission line located between the Bowmanton and Bulls Head substations. The selected solar panels will have anti-reflective coating as per AUC approval. Dunmore Solar is required to prepare a conservation and reclamation plan which identifies the resources needed to reclaim materials being used in the project and to return the land to pre-project conditions or an improved habitat status. Dunmore Solar received approval from the Alberta Utilities Commission for the power plant and substation on September 9th of 2021. Dunmore Solar Inc. conducted a solar glare analysis report in respect of the project. The report concluded that the project is not likely to have the potential to create hazardous glare conditions for the dwellings or transportation routes assessed. A noise impact assessment was also produced, and the AUC concluded that the project will operate in compliance with AUC Rule 12 requirements at all receptors. As per the submitted site plan, access into the site is proposed in 3 locations from Township Road 130 and 1 location from Township Road 124. Both township roads are considered medium-grade gravel roads in accordance with the county's design guidelines and construction standards. So I'll just skip over the table, but you all have it attached, and that outlines the legal land descriptions, their land use classification, and the owners. In the Land Use Bylaw 2018-04, under A2 General Agriculture, a commercial solar facility is considered a Class 2 discretionary use. Section 61, Solar Energy Regulations of the Land Use Bylaw states that a development permit will be required for all commercial solar energy production facilities that are intended to generate electricity, which is to be sold and transmitted into an electrical distribution system for commercial sale. Commercial solar energy production facilities shall be considered within the Agricultural District 1 and Agricultural District 2 industrial districts as a discretionary use. The developer may be responsible to obtain the necessary approvals from both the Alberta Utilities Commission as well as the Commercial Electric Distribution Company and provide copies of the approval documents as part of the development approval. The developer will be responsible to obtain the necessary inspections and commercial approvals from an authorized inspection agency under the Safety Codes Act as required for any of the equipment or infrastructure associated with the solar energy facility. All equipment and infrastructure associated with a commercial solar energy facility must comply with the setback distances outlined in Section 48, as well as those setbacks specified in the particular land use district in which the commercial solar energy facility is located. Provincial approval will also be required for installation within 0.8 kilometers of a provincial highway. When a commercial solar energy facility is decommissioned, the landowner will be required to return the solar energy facility location to the same land capability and quality as it was prior to the installation of any of the solar energy equipment. As part of the development application process, the Development Authority will ask the applicant to submit a detailed decommissioning plan to support the development application. And I'm just going to skip number 6 because that's for smaller solar projects. And number 7 is any solar energy panels and associated equipment for commercial or private use shall not be positioned so as to cause any unnecessary glare or disturbance to any adjacent residents or to any nearby public roadway. Any ground-mounted solar panels shall not exceed 15 feet in height above the existing grade. In the Cypress County Strategic Plan, Goal 5 is for Cypress County to focus on economic growth, sustainability, and diversification. And it's probably strategy 3, promote county as a destination for business growth and expansion. So I did circulate the application, and Alberta Transportation replied that the subject property is well removed from the provincial highway system, with access to the highway being indirect and solely by way of the local road system. Pursuant to the control lines outlined in the Public Highways Development Act and the corresponding Highway Development Control Regulation, being Alberta Regulation 242/90, a permit from Alberta Transportation is not required. Alberta Transportation reserves the right to reassess our position if the proposed development were to accommodate a significant amount of traffic volume. Cypress County, Cypress County Fire Services replied that an emergency response plan is required to be submitted for review and approval. It is also advisable that Dunmore Solar have adequate and appropriate fire guardian and fire suppression resources on site at all times during the construction of the solar project to provide monitoring and immediate response as needed. Cypress County Public Works replied that a road use agreement will be required for the use of Township Road 130 and Township Road 124 during construction. Internal service roads are being utilized for the project, and Dunmore Solar is required to meet all setback requirements for the internal service roads. The applicant will also be required to submit applications for prior approval by Public Works for 4 temporary and 4 permanent road approaches for the proposed access points. Any utility crossing locations and permits are to be determined and require prior approval by Public Works. So I tried to get some pictures. So this is from Township Road 130 looking west. And I believe, sorry, it's a little bit small, but I believe that this is the approximate location of the northeast boundary of the project. And so this is just a little further west up Township Road 130 looking back east. So this is one of the undeveloped road allowances that will run through the project. So we're just looking south. There will be solar panels proposed on either side of this road. think there's just another shot south. Ingrid's multitasking over there. So from Township Road 124, so we're looking north, and this would be the southeast boundary. And so you'd see proposed solar panels through this quarter going to the north. And that's just a shot looking west on Township Road 124 from that location. If I move on to my recommendation, it is to approve development permit applications 21/262 and 21/263, subject to the following conditions, and with the understanding the facility will be constructed and operated as outlined in the submitted application. Any changes must be submitted for approval by the Development Officer or Municipal Planning Commission. So I have numbers 1 through 6 that are standard conditions. I'll jump to number 7, which is all waste disposal shall be the responsibility of the developer and or owner and at his expense. All waste disposal must be in accordance with the Environmental Protection and Enhancement Act and Waste Control Regulation. Number 8, the developer or applicant is required to obtain all other provincial and federal approvals. A copy of all approvals is to be submitted to the Development Officer. All solar panels and related infrastructure are required to be set back a minimum distance of 40 meters or 130 feet from the center of all county roads and must follow all other minimum setback requirements in the current land use bylaw. The developer applicant is required to submit a final surveyed plan to the county to ensure compliance with this condition prior to commencement. Number 10, upon decommissioning of the project, a copy of the reclamation certificate application is to be submitted to the Development Officer. Number 11, the developer is required to submit an engineer's designed stormwater management plan to accommodate a 1 in 100 year event for the entire development area. The stormwater management plan is to be submitted and approved by Cypress County prior to commencement. Number 12, subject to the developer submitting an emergency response plan for approval by Cypress County prior to commencement. Number 13, the developer is required to submit a road accommodation plan. The plan is to be submitted and approved by Cypress County Public Works prior to commencement. Number 14, the developer is required to enter into a road use agreement with Cypress County and be in compliance with the terms of the agreement to protect Cypress County road infrastructure. The road use agreement is to be executed with Cypress County prior to any loads being hauled on site or any works to enter or upgrade the county road right-of-way. As a requirement of the road use agreement, the developer will be required to provide an appropriate performance bond to ensure that the developer meets the obligations under the agreement. And number 15, subject to a water supply for fire suppression to remain on site at all times during the construction of the project. And just to end here, I have a little note that 2 separate motions will be required by the board for a development permit application 21/262 and 21/263. And that is my report.
Thank you, Becky. Would the applicant like to speak to their application at this point?
Yes, thank you. There's a couple clarifications I wanted to make, specifically starting with point number 3 and the reclamation or the final cleanup of the site. It says the landowner, and this would actually be the lessee, which would be Dunmore Solar Inc., who would be responsible for all the cost of reclamation and decommissioning. So none of this would be borne by the landowner themselves.
Sorry, which one was that, Jennifer?
Point number 3. No, wait, let's go up to page. Under Land Use Bylaw 2018/04, number 3. No, not that one. Oh yeah, number 5, sorry, I can't read my own writing.
So that's how our land use bylaw is worded, so that's straight out of there. But your conditions, I believe, say the developer is responsible. It just number 10, it doesn't specify landowner or developer. It just says that a decommissioning of the project, a copy of the certificate must be supplied.
Okay, great. The other thing that I wanted to clarify was the emergency response plan has been drafted and reviewed by the Cypress County Fire Chief, and as we move into EPC procurement and closer to construction, we will update and review that also with the EPC team and also with emergency services at Cypress County. Robert, do you have any other comments? I wanted to introduce, we missed it at the beginning, but Thomas Freiberg is on the line from Austria, and Thomas is representative of Green Cells. And Thomas, I'll just invite you to say anything about the project that you would like right now.
No, it's hello, thank you, Jennifer, and thanks for the audience. No, at the moment this is all clear. The planning conditions to be discharged for the development, further development of the solar farm, is all clear with us. We have seen this all, we have reviewed this all, and we'll comply with it.
The other thing that we should probably speak to is the project schedule. Originally, the project was set to move to construction earlier this year, February, March of this year, and be under construction at this time. But with the purchase of the project by Green Cells Terralite, it's been delayed to September. So we've applied to the Alberta Utilities Commission for a construction start by September 30th of 2022. That said, during the summer months, there's going to be some pre-construction activities that are going to happen beginning at the end of April, early May with geotechnical activities. There's going to be a geotechnical program running through kind of the beginning of May. That'll be followed probably by a formal site survey, and I think that's probably most of there might be some environmental surveys that need to happen this summer just because we need to update some of our environmental reports per commitments for construction. And then construction's going to start in September with the substation first. And maybe, Robert, I'll invite you to just talk about the construction schedule specifically.
Yeah, we're going to work with the weather, of course. The goal will be to do foundation, site grading, road work, and underground cable trenching, ideally all before November 30th. Probably reduced presence on site during the coldest months of the year. Continue with structural erection of solar racking starting in, say, mid-February or March when it starts to be a little bit more bearable. That'll continue through into the spring, structural racking, module installation, and then electrical work with a goal of having energization, of the substation in, say, the summer, the start of the third quarter, July-ish of 2023, and full completion of the site before the end of 2023.
Thank you. Any open the floor to discussion from Planning Commission?
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
So I missed it in the presentation there. How many acres is this supposed to cover with the photocells?
Jeremy, it's going to be over 7 quarter sections.
Okay, and then can they speak more to the reclamation of the site once it's complete? Is it cut and cap, or what is going to be done with all of the structural stuff that's in these fields?
I'll speak to the acreage first. So even though it's 7 quarter sections, the whole land base of those 7 quarter sections isn't usable just because of environmental constraints and various setbacks and stuff. So our actually usable land, I think, ends up being something like 650 acres out of that. And The rest has been set back or laid aside, I guess, for wetland habitat and also just various setbacks from existing infrastructure, county roads, oil and gas wells, and pipelines. With regards to reclamation, I'll start with, so we have plans in place for reclamation, two of them in particular. One is an environmental protection plan that sort of guides general environmental protection for the project. The other one is a very detailed conservation and reclamation plan that follows the conservation and reclamation regulation in Alberta for renewable projects and starts with pre-project planning. And so what we'd like to do is, if we have a fall construction time start, we'd like appropriate crop residue left in the soil, and ideally the planting of some kind of cover crop, just because we recognize that it's very dry conditions in Alberta, especially in Cypress County, and we want to maintain the soil as much as possible. There's going to be minimal site grading. It's not like we go in and clear the site or level it. We don't really do that unless it's needed for specific sites like the substation. We'll actually grade it and build a gravel pad. But generally we're not going to be out there leveling dirt and stuff like that. So reclamation is actually fairly minimal. But that said, there's going to be interim reclamation during construction, immediately following construction, and as needed as we move on, just to make sure that seed takes, we're managing weeds, the stormwater management plan is taken care of appropriately. The other thing I wanted to say is for decommissioning, now I'm kind of jumping ahead, is all the solar panels and the racking and the piles that are driven will be removed from the site. The underground wiring, sometimes it can be left depending on what the landowner says. It's buried quite shallow, a meter at most, and so lots of times landowners want it removed. And then there'll be reclamation at the end to reseed the site, to do any grading, to remove the substation pad, that type of stuff. Does that help clarify, or is there more I can offer?
Yeah, that helps clarify. I was just curious with the piles and stuff, like if they're going to be removed or just cut and capped, like is it going to be able to be agriculturally used to farm at some point down the road, I guess. And then second part of that question is, what is the life cycle for one of these facilities? How many years do you expect to have it up before the cells are degraded to the point of being used any longer?
Yeah, absolutely. The intent is to return the site back to like pre-solar conditions, so it would be used for agriculture. And there's quite a few piles that are going to be installed at this site, so we wouldn't cut and cap, we would remove them all. The lifetime of, or the life cycle of the project is planned to be up to 40 years. And so the lease with the landowner is 30 years plus an option for 2 10-year renewals. The sites can be, I might look to Robert here to help me out, but can be repaneled so that they can be optimized in the future as new panel technology comes out. So once these panels say degrade to a point, or the owner wants to optimize the plant, they can do so.
Okay, I just wanted to touch on that, I guess. That's all. That's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Go ahead, Dan.
Just want to follow up a little bit on that. When you say you're going to take it all out, where are you disposing of all this stuff? Is it going to go to our landfills around here, or are you taking it completely out of the county again?
I think the intent would be to take it to a commercial recycler, like a steel recycler.
Hey, Dan.
Just hold on 1 minute, Jeremy.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. So obviously all the steel structural is entirely recyclable, right? It has more scrap value actually than it'll take labor to remove it from the ground. The panels themselves is the biggest question, and the materials, solar panels are made from aluminum frame, glass top sheet, silicone cells, and all of those materials are actually in quite high demand and are becoming with the energy transition, are becoming more and more valuable. And so we don't see a lot of recycling facilities in existence in Canada yet, but Europe is already well on the way to recycling panels, and the US has started to build plants as the volume is coming along. Just to go back to the earlier question about life cycle, the panels have a minimum output guarantee at 25 years of 85% of their original capability. So 20 years ago, solar panels degraded fairly quickly, and so in Europe, for example, there's lots of sites that were repowered after 10 years because the technology improved so much, so quickly. You know, solar's arrival in Alberta is at a more mature phase, and so there may be some astronomical improvement that we're not anticipating, but broadly, these are very long life cycle, very durable, unlikely to have a lot of waste until the end of life of the project. And at that point, basically all the materials in the panels are going to be attractive and again have recycling value. So we would expect that there will be commercial facilities to take it all away. And then of course, copper is, there's lots of cable going in as well. Of course, all recyclable. So there shouldn't be a ton of garbage per se that goes to landfill.
No, sorry, Tom speaking. Yeah, that's correct. Thanks. Prince right, Robert here. I mean, the lifespan of modules, I mean, they come with 25-year guarantee on the degradation of the modules, but we've seen projects now which are operating since more than 40 years already and don't have a big regression. So in general, there's almost unlimited time for solar park to be in operation. And yes, when lifetime is over in terms of maybe the regression is too low or the lease agreements run out, solar park can be up to 98% recycled. So this is all raw materials, and modules are made of actually sand by I don't know how many percent, but it's a big percentage. It's made of sand and silicon. It can be all recycled. There's no toxic materials involved. So this will be most likely in 35-40 years time will be fully recycled and taken off the ground.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
The undeveloped road use, or the undeveloped road going through there, do we have any issues with that, or do we need to put anything in for that?
So Public Works has been working with Ascent to utilize internal service roads rather than upgrading the undeveloped road allowance. So currently proposed is in the report I had mentioned, or Public Works mentioned, 4 temporary access approaches. Those are to cross the road allowance to access the other quarters, but they will be removed afterwards. It would just be during construction to be able to move around within the project area. So they won't be using any county roads other than Township Road 130 and Township Road 124.
Okay, so for the building of the project, they don't expect us to fix that undeveloped road in there?
Correct.
Quick question. So according to the 375 gigawatt hours of electricity produced per year, that's enough to power 48,000 homes. That's correct from this project? Yeah. Okay. I'm just so is that how offset it? Like we're hearing all this information out there right now that there's no solar production in the winter time and it's actually costing money to have them there. Can you speak to that issue?
So the electricity market in Alberta is, I'll zoom right out to the big picture and tell me if I'm telling you stuff you already know. But the electricity market in Alberta has quite a broad fleet of supply, right? We have a retiring coal fleet. We have a pretty big gas fleet that's growing. We have a long legacy of hydro. Now, of course, we have wind and solar. And so that mix changes hour by hour and day by day and season by season. And so in the summertime, there's definitely, there's definitely a greater supply of solar. And what you see happening in the market in Alberta is as variable sources such as wind and solar come on stream, you see an abundance of supply, and the more expensive sources choose to turn off. And so there's like really efficient gas, like 800 megawatt scale, and then there's smaller gas, 2 or 3 megawatts behind a gas plant. And those peaker plants, they'll turn off when prices are below, 8 cents or 7 cents. And so what we see is, we see a market behavior that's driven by, by what's available at the time. When the wind blows steadily because of the high geographic concentration, you tend to have lower prices. Wind energy actually trades at about a 33% discount to the 24/7 average of electricity in Alberta, just because it's so correlated, and it tends to blow at night when demand isn't as high. So solar actually correlates really well with, because it's daytime, it's well correlated with all of us getting up and doing things. And what happens is when there's a cloudy day or at night, the other sources of energy in the fleet, the other types of generation, they happily step in and are dispatched up to match it up. And so what we're seeing in the energy transition is going from basically, and if we went back 50 years, we had 2 sources of generation, coal and hydro. Now we're up to 5. Soon we'll have energy storage facilities as well. Not contemplated in this particular project, but many similar projects of this scale are going to have 24/7 ability. They'll store electricity and then discharge it when it's in demand. Again, just based on the market behavior. So when it's sitting, it's not costing anybody anything. Generators receive, the way the grid works in Alberta is that load pays for the grid. Generators pay for the losses that they cause by when they add electricity. There's more energy flowing, more thermal losses. So generators pay for that. But if it's not active, it's like during nighttime hours, obviously, it just sits there and has no impact on the pricing or the costs in the grid. And then when it is exporting, it's paid basically purely whatever the pool price is at that particular time. It has the opportunity to sell in. And if there's ever an abundance, an excessive amount of electricity, the system controller can dispatch down different types of generation in different areas of the province to balance the system. But we have such a resilient grid that it's actually unlikely that solar will get dispatched down. There will be other people who are more willing to stop burning gas in order to, avoid the cost of operation. So I realize that's a pretty big. I covered a lot of topics there, but is that helpful, and how can I improve it for you?
Well, I mean, it's really off topic for today's discussion. We're talking development, but it's just for my general understanding. So.
You're not the first person who's been curious.
There's a lot of information out there, and the toughest thing to do today is separate the wheat from the chaff. So, okay. My concern, from a philosophical perspective, is about food security. When we look at solar, we're losing, say, there's about 2,700 loaves of bread per acre produced in this area at 30 bushels per acre. So when you look at that, you're looking at 400,000 loaves of bread per quarter per annum. So I just want to make sure that this is it's a sound decision, but it's not attached to development. Anyways, I digress. Okay, go ahead, Jeremy.
I'm just going to be walking in here right away, actually. So can we hang on 2 minutes, or you guys can just keep talking? I'll just come in.
Come on down. Go ahead, Dad.
So with these ones, are these the solar ones that are going to move with the light and follow the light, or they're just one solid?
Yeah, no, these are planned as fixed tilt, so they would just be stationary. Yeah. Now that said, we have committed to the Alberta Utilities Commission to provide a final design and layout by September 30th of this year. We'll likely do it sooner, as we finalize the layout. We'll provide it to Cypress County at the same time. But at this time, we don't anticipate switching the fixed tilt to single axis tracking, which is the ones that do this. Do you have any concerns with the trackers, or it was a general question?
No, just a general question. I've seen them up in the Brooks area there, and when they're fixed like that, they're full of snow and everything in the winter, and to me, that's absolutely useless, because how are you going to generate anything through that?
That's a misconception that Robert badly wants to speak to.
Okay.
But one of the reasons why we're actually just doing the fixed tilt is because it requires less land. If you're doing the single access tracker, you need more land, and most of the time we're land constrained. And to the chairman's point, most counties and most landowners don't want to give up great arable land, so and that's one reason. So.
Go ahead, Robert, let's hear it.
So a couple of things that are worth noting about snow and frost, that you will see a difference in performance from these panels in this installation than you will see from for instance, Brooks 1, which is very visible from the highway there. A few different things. The first thing is that the biggest thing you have when you have snow on a panel is you want it to melt off as quickly as possible. And so two things, well, there's one, the first thing that helps with that is most likely we will be selecting a panel that is bifacial. It'll have a clear back sheet that is actually able to generate electricity off the reflection from light that's reflected off of the snow behind it. And it's very common, and those trackers as well, they're using bifacial as well. Basically, the cell actually can generate from either side. You just have to not put something opaque behind it, and you get free electricity from it. Now, it's not a huge amount. It's a 20% uptick or something. But the thing that it does, as soon as it starts to generate, it warms up, so it speeds up melt-off. And then the second thing that you'll see on this project is there's a high likelihood that it will be what's called a landscape orientation. So just like a piece of paper, and if you look at Brooks 1, it is a 2-portrait arrangement. So 2 sheets of paper, they're basically 1 meter by 2 meters, and they're stacked like so. And the way that those cells were made 6 years ago now, if any part of the panel is blocked, it really impairs the flow of current through it. And so you have to wait until the panel is basically fully clear before it starts to generate. When you turn them to two things that they did to change that. One is you turn it to landscape, and so now there will be 4 panels, and if the top one melts a little bit, it starts generating quicker, has a faster recovery. The second thing is that the way that the cells themselves are strung, they are, if you block the bottom 4 inches of a panel, the rest of the panel still produces. So they very much took on these challenges to accelerate the rate at which it starts to generate, and then as soon as it warms itself up, it helps to melt it off. And then I can keep talking about this till you're sleepy. They did a study at NATE a few years ago where they went out for like 4 years, and they had 2 identical arrays of different panels at different angles, and they swept one panel off and they left the other, and they measured the differences. And over the course of the year, no sweeping of snow subtracted something around 10% of the total available power. So during the winter months, it took about 10% of the available power, but over the course of the year, that was, of course, a much smaller percentage. And so it is, yes, you will see them covered in snow for some period of time, and we've done lots of math on whether it's worth hiring someone to go sweep them off, but the electricity value lost is not enough to justify that labor. But we've modeled for that, and there is a loss due to soiling due to snow, but it's a small and incremental amount.
Thank you. Jeremy, do you have any questions in person?
Sorry, I was just traveling today. I have a couple more questions. Do you guys have any on-site storage for power? So like any battery backup that's on storage for that?
No, we don't have storage plan for this project.
Okay, perfect. What about a vegetation mitigation plan?
A vegetation management plan?
Right, so like underneath these solar panels, like stuff's potentially gonna die off and weeds are gonna grow and it's gonna potentially blow onto neighboring fields. Like, is there a plan for that?
Absolutely, and we're mindful of that because we work in other jurisdictions, and it's probably the most common thing that we hear. And yes, we are planning to put together a vegetation management plan. It's a sub-plan of our environmental protection plan, and the point of the vegetation management plan is to talk about What exactly will be planted? It'll take into consideration time of year that we're starting, what the operations are, what the conditions are on site, and also work with the existing landowner to either maintain crop residue, to do cover crop planting, to maybe even introduce mulch. We'll have to be careful about that, I guess. Like some counties recommend straw crimping. We don't love straw crimping just because it sometimes introduces weeds. But yeah, and it'll also consider what we're planning to do is actually do a native grass mix underneath. So we want to actually plant grass species. It's going to be like a long-term project. So we don't want it to be tame grass. We would like it to be native grass. And then at the end of the year, or sorry, at the end of the project's life, if the landowner wants to reconvert that back to cultivated agriculture, they can. If they want to use it for grazing, they can do so as well. So that plan, just to clarify, we'll be working on that probably throughout the summer because we need to submit it to the Alberta Utilities Commission for the fall as well. And at that time, we can also make it available to Cypress County. And if you like, we can actually work with you to review it as we develop it. We're doing the same thing with Vulcan County.
Okay, and then I guess one more question, I guess, for the transfer of onus for reclamation. So down the road, this company decides to sell or gets bought out. Is that onus for reclamation transferred as well as one of the conditions? Or how does that typically work?
Well, I can speak to it from the land lease point of view. So the land lease that Dunmore Solar holds with the landowner contains commitments for reclamation. And so as that land lease will transfer to a new owner, for example, like it's similar to what it has from Horus Energy to Green Cells Terralite. And so, yes, those commitments will be maintained. And also because they're commitments made as part of the project approval to the Alberta Utilities Commission. So they'll pass along with the life of the project.
It's kind of a owner beware, right? If you're putting a contract out to rent some land for a building, you want to make sure that that's built into the contract. So I don't know if that's, I know if that's comp to responsibility or not. I don't think it is, but good point.
Just asking the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a common question.
Okay, any other discussion? Nigel?
A couple of quick ones. I noticed you met the noise requirements of the AUC's Rule 12. I'm curious what the largest noise source would be in a solar. Would it be like the substation transformer, likely?
Yeah, the substation transformer is for sure the largest single point source noise. The inverters, I think 82, I think, is the current plan. The inverters are a similar piece of power electronics, not as big, but they do have a small transformer, and they have some cooling fans, but not much. I mean, the reality of it is that at the project edge, the decibel levels are so low, it's like, you know, rustling leaves or, you know, the comparator. Solar projects generally have no trouble meeting noise requirements. To Jeremy's question about about storage, you know, large battery banks with more inverters and more cooling fans stuff, you'll get a bigger point source, but still it's relatively easy to stay within those requirements compared to the other types of industrial noise we're accustomed to at a gas plant or a wind site, for example. It's very low.
What's nice about this project too is most of the time substations are placed at the edge of the project site near a road, but we placed the substation kind of in the middle of the project, just the way it was laid out and the way we had to work around some environmental setbacks. So it's kind of almost buffered by a bit of the terrain. So it's nicer for the neighboring residents.
One other curiosity too, I noticed looking at the AUC application, in the one diagram it showed a future Altalink switching station next to your substation. Do you have any information on what would trigger the need for that?
So Altalink asked, it was the Alberta Electric System Operator asked us to reserve a site beside the collector substation for a switching substation. And the reason they do that is because the way we're interconnecting to that 138 kV line is we're T-tapping onto it, which basically means like, here's the line and we just basically bolt onto it. Ordinarily, they would ask for, and they have in the past, where we would actually build a separate substation, our collector substation, plus a separate substation to interconnect to the line. And so in the future, if there's a bunch more projects that want to connect to this 138 kV line, they might want us to use the switching station to fulfill our interconnection. So it's kind of a future planning need, and so it would just be a small additional system substation, if that makes sense. Okay.
So the 138 kV line obviously is the conduit, no pun intended, for all this development. Now, so we're seeing our time being occupied by that. How much what percentage of capacity would we see right now, and what potential can we see for development for projects such as yourselves for the 138 kV line? Like, how many can we expect?
So,
go on.
I'm not sure if I can if I can answer how many you can expect, but what we're observing is that this south region, just by virtue of the fact that everybody wants to put wind and solar here because it's sunny and windy, is the south region's getting tapped out. And so right now, I think you probably, I mean, knock on wood, you probably can't expect too many more projects unless there is a system upgrade that happens over the next, say, 5 years, where the Alberta Electric System Operator and AltaLink will work together to, build another reinforcement line, probably east to west or something like that. Robert, do you want to say anything more about capacity?
Well, I want to be very careful not to contradict Jennifer, but it's interesting. The thought that went through my mind is that, as a municipality, you have visibility of the queue the same way we do, but people don't appear in front of you until they're pretty close to being ready to build. There's certainly lots of projects out there, and everybody pays attention to where the capacity is. The only thing I would say to Jennifer is that, under the current, that I would say that sort of contradicts what Jennifer said, is under the current legislative framework for transmission in Alberta is that the transmission system needs to grow to accommodate anybody that wants to locate, any generator that wants to locate, and anywhere they want to. And so if all the generators chose to locate in the very southeast corner of the province, and there was it wouldn't happen overnight, but ultimately, under the current rules, the system operator would plan and AltaLink would build enough reinforcement to get that energy to the loads, which are obviously Calgary and Edmonton and Fort McMurray, right? What we're seeing, like on this particular line, this is an incredibly strong and an incredibly simple interconnection on a brand new 138 line that was built in the last 10 years. So, that's good project siting in the development phase. The constraint is not in the lines around here. The constraint is closer to Calgary, right, where it all kind of funnels in, and so that's the current thing that's limiting things. Now, but as Jennifer said, a reinforcement would solve that, and you'd see more capacity again. The other thing I'll invite you to look at, there's a nice map that the system operator produces and that the utility commission produces. The system operator is all the applications that have been asked for, all the connections that have been asked for, and the utilities commission is like one stage further down the pipe in terms of all the ones that have been applied for, and then I think they even have color coding for what's been approved. And so if you wanted a quick snapshot of the county, that would be the spot to look.
And that's under the ASO website?
The ASO has one, and the AUC has one.
Okay.
The AUC is more static. It's a PDF, but it's every quarter or something. Okay. You can get a pretty good snapshot of the grid pretty quickly from there.
Okay.
I can provide links to Becky if you want to circulate them with everybody. One thing I will say is when we did our system studies for this project, that particular 138 kV line, even though it was, it's a robust and large conductored 138 kV line, it's getting tapped out for new generation. I think there's 4 projects planned to T-tap like we are, which is quite a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Discussion? Motions? Okay. Yeah. So we've got two applications. So on 21/262, Dan moves approval of that application with conditions as presented.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, carried. And Michelle moves the second one, 21/263. All those in favor? Carried. So your development permit has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there's now a 3-week appeal period for the public to appeal the issuance of this permit. The permit will be advertised in the Cypress Courier newspaper for a duration of 3 consecutive weeks. After 21 days, the development permit will become valid. At that time, if you have any further questions, you may contact the development officer after today's meeting to discuss them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you from Greensource Energy as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, so we'll break for lunch, and we'll reconvene at, I think, 12:30 is when the next schedule is. 1 o'clock, we got, okay. We got an hour, there you go. So, for consideration now, we've got, Action Land and EDF Bull Trail Energy Center Limited. So we want to start out with 2242 and then 2242 to 2282 and 2284 to 2291. Are you going to be talking to these? Kayleen gets us all right. Go ahead, Kayleen.
So maybe what we'll do, Mr. Chairman, just for time's sake, I'll give the overall review in context of the entire project. I'll go into my recommendations, and then I believe Mark Gallagher, who's with EDF, and Jason Tweeten have a presentation that they'd like to give as well. And then after that, we can review each of the development permit applications one by one, just to keep things smooth, if that sounds okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So today we've got development permit applications 2242 to 2282 inclusive, and 2284 to 2291 inclusive. The applicant is Action Land and Environmental on behalf of the Bull Trail Renewable Energy Center LP. The land use district of all of the quarter sections in question is A2 General Agriculture. And the proposal is for the Bull Trail Wind Power Project, including the construction of 49 wind turbines and a temporary laydown yard. So Action Land and Environmental has submitted the development permit applications on behalf of Bull Trail Renewables. On March 22nd, Cypress County Council granted approval to Bylaw 2022-07 for the Wind Energy Facility District Overlay. The overlay of the district allows for the use and activity of turbines and related infrastructure, while still allowing for agricultural activities to continue on each parcel. And the bylaw takes effect upon the issuance of the associated development permits for the project. The area is located approximately 3 kilometers south of the hamlet of Urban and east of Highway 41. Application proposes the construction of 49 wind turbines and a temporary laydown yard. The applicant has been permitted by the Alberta Utilities Commission for the construction of up to 51 turbines. However, 2 of the turbines are requiring to be replotted, and therefore the applicant will need to conduct further consultation with the public for those 2 turbines. And in addition, the applicant is awaiting final approvals from the Utilities Commission for their proposed substation. Therefore, those development permit applications will be brought forward at a later date for the Planning Commission's consideration. The electricity generated at each turbine will be transported through a 34.5 kV underground collector system and then routed to the project substation. Collector lines will be located adjacent to the turbine access roads on private land where feasible, and will follow public road allowances to reach the project substation. There's a total of 49 turbines being requested, with a maximum capacity for each turbine of 5.2 megawatts. Maximum capacity for the project is up to 270 megawatts, and the specific turbine and vendor has not yet been selected. The application also includes a temporary laydown yard to be utilized during construction. The yard will be contained on private property within the Northwest 2210-2. Once the site is prepared, on-site activities will include material storage, equipment refueling, temporary offices and toilet facilities, rinsing and water facilities, and parking. Laydown area will have an area footprint of approximately 5 hectares, or 12.36 acres, and will accommodate an 80-meter diameter around each turbine for assembly. Once construction is completed, the temporary laydown yard will be returned to its original state, unless otherwise agreed to with the landowner. Upon commissioning of the project, maintenance is expected to be scheduled at 6-month intervals and will require 2 to 3 technicians to climb each tower and complete the necessary maintenance activities. Therefore, upon completion of construction, the anticipated traffic volumes and type of traffic is expected to decrease. Any waste that is generated at facilities will be disposed of at an approved facility. The developer has supplied an emergency response plan to the county, and the plan has since been accepted by Cypress County Emergency Services. And in support of the development permit application, they've also supplied us with a conservation and reclamation plan, a flood risk assessment prepared by WSP, an environmental evaluation report, a noise impact assessment, and of course the emergency response plan. So while these studies are included in the Planning Commission's agenda package, they're more so for supplementary information. Many of those studies are approved under the authority of either Alberta Environment or the Utilities Commission, so it's intended just to be for your additional info. In terms of our policy review, the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan states that the agricultural industry is the #1 renewable and sustainable resource in the region. Region has a natural advantage for renewable energy sources, and the government continues to support a focus on renewable energy to promote the stimulation and delivery of renewable energy sources to move towards clean energy. Section 8, Resource Extraction and Renewable Energy of the Municipal Development Plan, states that the county shall support and encourage renewable energy projects to locate in the county in a planned and managed way to mitigate the impacts on area residents, farming operations, and other industries. The county shall encourage the integration of wind renewable energy with other land uses in the county. The county shall discourage wind energy facilities to locate within close proximity to a hamlet or existing multi-parcel country residential subdivision to avoid potential impacts. And the county shall require that wind energy facilities submit applications that include an accurate site plan showing and labeling the locations of the sites, the projected number of towers, location of overhead utilities and access roads, and approval from the appropriate provincial authority. Under the Wind Energy Facility District of the Land Use Bylaw, it states that wind energy facilities, including turbines and substations, are considered a Class 2 discretionary use requiring approval by the Planning Commission. All turbines shall be positioned so that the tip of the entire blade is within the property for which the turbine has been placed. Under minimum setback requirements, it states that no part of a building or structure shall be located within 40 meters of the center line of any public road, not designated as a provincial highway. Setbacks for development within 1.6 kilometers of a provincial highway is determined by Alberta Transportation. Section 9.1, Roadways of the Cypress County Design Guidelines, states that Cypress County may require the developer to enter into a road use agreement to ensure that the roads affected by the development are adequately maintained. In conjunction with the road use agreement, the developer will be required to provide security in the form of a performance bond to meet their obligations under the agreement. And under the Cypress County Strategic Plan, Goal 5, Cypress County focuses on economic growth, sustainability, and diversification, and the strategy is to promote the county as a destination for business growth and expansion. We circulated the applications and the overall key map to Alberta Transportation, and they advised the applicant that development within the right-of-way or within 300 meters beyond the limit of the highway or within 800 meters from the center point of any intersection requires a permit. And no comments were received from Public Works. We've got a Public Works representative here with us. And would you like me to go into my recommendations right now, Mr. Chair, or would you like to turn it over to the applicant at this point? Okay.
Did you hear me? Sorry. Let's go with the applicant. Go ahead with your presentation, please.
So thanks a lot, everyone, for your time. I know there's a lot of applications to get through, so I'll try and keep this as quick as possible. So my name is Mark Gallagher. I'm the Director of Development with EDF Renewables, responsible for developing this project and, excuse me, previously the Cypress project. Next slide, please. So I just want to quickly talk about building community support. Some of the community concerns that were raised at the last zoning meeting. I just wanted to address those quickly, and then talk about the project benefits. So building community support. So, you know, at EDF, we very much appreciate and recognize the importance of building strong community support. We're in the community for 30 years. You know, we own and operate the project. We hire local people. They work in the project for 30 years. So it's very important for us that we consult well and have a project that's well supported within the community. And I think that was evidenced in our AUC approval, where it didn't go to hearing. Most large wind projects go to hearing through the AUC process. We didn't go to hearing because there were no objections that took us through to hearing, which again I think is a sign of support for this particular project. And then in addition to the taxes that we're going to be paying for the project, we've also established a community benefit fund where we're going to set up a fund. It's $20,000 a year for the life of the project, just to support local community-led initiatives and grassroots projects, such as for Cypress, we just did the covered rink project. So just to support projects like that. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. So what we heard last time during the zoning meeting was sort of three main concerns. The first one was decommissioning. The second one was turbine lighting. And the third one was people weren't really aware what the benefits of the project were. So, we recognize that those are legitimate concerns, and we just want to take a few minutes to address those today. So the first one, decommissioning. So we've developed a real detailed decommissioning plan that we filed, and it's available on our website, and we filed it with Cypress County. So that's a very detailed document. It explains exactly how the project's going to be decommissioned. During the development of the Cypress project, it became a concern that they were like, well, that's great, but what if EDF aren't around? What if you go broke? Having an oil and gas wells, people are left with oil and gas wells on their property. So we took that as a legitimate concern, and we said, okay, that's fair. So what we did was we developed language, and people at the last meeting were like, well, what is this language like? Can you show the agreement? So this is just an extract of the language that's from the agreement. So the owner, that's the landowner, may request by written notice to the lessee, which is EDF, that EDF provide the owner with access to a bond or a letter of credit in the amount of the estimated restoration costs. The restoration cost being the amount of money that it's going to take to decommission the project, meaning that we're responsible for decommissioning the project. However, if a landowner feels that we're not fulfilling our obligations or we're not living up to our obligations, that they can get a bond or a letter of credit in the amount of money that it would take to decommission the project. And sorry, there was a question then around, well, who's responsible? So EDF are still responsible for decommissioning and completing the decommission of the project. That language that we've added is just a safety net. And some people are saying, well, what about this should there be a provincial fund? In our opinion, it's much better that the landowner has the direct access to the money than chasing some federal fund or trying to get their piece of some fund to clean up the project. This way, the landowner has direct access to the money in a bond or in escrow to take the project down. So we feel that's a much better solution. Excuse me. Turbine lighting. So this one in particular was raised by Councillor Kerpowit. So, we understand that there is a concern, and this is I think as Jason mentioned last time, this is regulated under the Canadian Aviation Regulation. So Transport Canada manages this, and basically any wind turbine, any structure actually that's over 150 meters needs to have aviation warning lights for obvious reasons. Now what we did was we engaged an aviation expert to develop a lighting plan that we went back to. So instead of lighting every single turbine, we proposed a plan to mitigate the impacts and went back to Transport Canada, and they accepted our plan that now we only have to light 50% of the turbines. We only have to light half of the amount of turbines, which is great, obviously. And then we're continuing to mitigate, with this new technology. So it's called LIDS, and it stands for Light Intensity Dimming Solution. And basically what it does is it reacts to the local environmental conditions and visibility conditions. And if it's a clear night, the intensity of the light goes down to up to 90%. So it reacts to the weather conditions and what's required. So obviously if it's cloudy and dark or foggy, then it's brighter. If it's a nice clear night, then it's dimmer. Next slide, please. And so this, this is the technology, and we're installing this at Cypress right now. We're working on Cypress, so by the time Bull Trail comes around, we'll know if this is working well and everything else. So it's, like I said, it's a means of tailoring the intensity of the light levels, and we're working with this company right now to install that. And I explained this to Councillor Kerpowit recently, so he's happy that we're looking at this. And then quickly, just the project benefits. There was some questions around, well, what are the project benefits? So I just wanted to highlight those. So first of all, it's bringing 270 megawatts of clean, renewable electricity to the grid. The estimates are around, it's probably going to be over $1 million a year in taxes to Cypress County, and that's for the next 20 to 30 years. So obviously that's $20 to $30 million for the county. An investment of a project of this size is around 400 million, and about 30% of that is spent within, they say, around 100 miles of the project. So that's 120 million. So there's 120 million dollars of, and that's aggregates, concrete, everything else, and it's all spent within 100 miles of the project. So that's 120 million in this region over 2 years. There's long-term revenues, obviously, for all of the landowners. There's 20 different families involved in this project. So via lease payments, long-term payments, which, is a hedge for them against droughts, flooding, fertilizer prices, whatever it might be. Construction jobs. So, we're ramping up right now at Cypress, and it's about 250 jobs at the peak of construction. And then there's going to be at least sort of 10 full-time people working on this, and it's good paying, 20, 30-year jobs. And then, as I touched on, the annual community fund that we're going to set up, again, $20,000 a year to support local grassroots initiatives. And then, obviously, the knock-on effects of hotels, restaurants, and everything else. So, that's it. We've worked in consultation with all of our landowners and the county staff to ensure that the turbines are well sited and that we meet all of the county's setback requirements. And we look forward to developing this project and being sensitive to the demands of the local community. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions regarding the presentation from Planning Commission?
You said go ahead. Due to you were talking about the cost of the reclamation on this stuff, like just for my own info or the group's info here, like what is the ballpark per windmill? Do you guys have it broke down to that?
So in the lease, we've got a very detailed, it would get third-party estimates. It's hard to say because it's going to be 30 years from now. But essentially, you're bringing in you're just cutting it off and dragging it out. And there's actually estimates that saying the value of the scrap steel, because there's so much steel in the tower, will cover the cost of decommissioning anyway. People will come and take it for free, essentially, because of the value of the steel. But it's really hard to say. In 30 years' time, what it's going to cost, I'm not sure. But in the lease, we have a very detailed methodology. So, at that time, if they request a letter of credit, we'll bring in a third party to assess exactly how much it's going to cost. And then that's the bond to be put up to equal that cost, rather than us just making up a number.
Dan?
Okay, just what is the cost per tower? I'm going off of what you were saying we were generating for taxes for Cypress County a year, and your numbers aren't matching up to what I've been talking with our tax guys. So what is your cost or your valuation per tower? You go by the watts on that, or how does?
Yeah, but we'll have to sort of figure that out because there's the turbine and there's the installation costs and the balance of plant costs and everything else. We'll do the detailed assessment with your assessor, obviously, and we'll provide all that information. But when we had our tax guy run it up, he reckoned it was going to be over $1 million a year. But we'll do the detailed assessment with you at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be with the school tax involved. So I'm just trying to for the group to understand.
You think it's less or more?
Well, okay, say you're $1 million a year on your full tax bill. Cypress County would get half of that.
Oh, right.
Because school tax is involved.
Right.
And because our mill rate is so low, the school taxes actually make slightly more than what the county does for.
Right.
So.
Sorry,
I think that what we wanted to reply back, Dan, in the public hearing, we just heard a lot of local stakeholders bring up comments about the community benefit. And at that time, I had touched a bit on the tax revenue and the value to the entire local area. And so we wanted to make sure that when, EDF by Mark was actually here, that he could, again, stress to everybody exactly what value the entire area is getting with a project of this magnitude, right? So you're probably absolutely right that when a company like EDF says tax, there's more hands in there than just Cypress County. But overall, the taxes that company's paying, that's going to go to lots of different organizations such as Cypress County, maybe Prairie Grove School, so on and so forth. Everyone's going to see value throughout the project. Just as an overview, that's kind of what we were trying to get at. We didn't really want to spend a lot of time discussing the specific taxes that Cypress County would get, but more to respond to the concerns at the public hearing in regards to value for the local area, right?
Yeah, and I appreciate what you're trying to do there. I just don't want to be skewed a little bit on stuff because it's, you take a commercial business that has $1 million worth of tax value, same as one of your you pay on that $1 million. And I know when you come in with what you're bringing in for electricity, you get depreciated down right away off the start. And at the end of 30 years or 25 years, you're only paying on 40% of your value, where if you have a commercial business, that business goes up in value every year and you're paying every year more and more, where you're paying less and less. So I'm just trying to make sure everybody sees.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everybody sees $1 million and goes, oh, that's a good deal. Well, it isn't exactly what it's showing there.
Yeah, and for Cypress, we're close to like doing that assessment, so we'll have a pretty good idea pretty soon of what that actually is exactly working on. Yeah.
Okay, do you want to go through the conditions?
You'll have to bear with me, I forgot to print them, so I'm going to attempt to read them off my phone. I think my eyes are good enough. Okay. So I'll read the conditions in general. Each one of the development permit applications is going to have the same conditions recommended to be imposed upon it, so the conditions aren't going to vary. So I'll maybe go over those quickly. No, that's okay, I'm good. Oh, do you want Ingrid to bring them up so you can read them? Okay, yeah, Ingrid, if you could bring up the conditions on the screen, that would be great. Okay, so recommendation is to approve development permit application 22 blank, subject to the following conditions and with the understanding that the turbine or the laydown yard will be constructed and operated as outlined in the submitted application. Any changes must be submitted for approval by the development officer and or the Municipal Planning Commission. So condition number 1 is a standard condition, responsibility of the developer and or owner to ensure that any applicable provincial and federal statutes and regulations are complied with, including the Safety Codes Act. A copy of all permits and approvals are to be submitted to Cypress County. Number 2, this development shall comply with all regulations under the Land Use Bylaw except where variance has been granted by the Planning Commission. Number 3, a new permit must be obtained for any future additions or changes in the use or intensity of the use of the land or buildings. Number 4, the approval of this application does not in any way obligate the county to provide access to development. Number 5, the developer is required to enter into a road use agreement with Cypress County and be in compliance with the terms of the agreement as it relates to the project to protect the Cypress County road infrastructure. Road use agreement is to be executed with Cypress County prior to any oversized loads being hauled on site or any works to upgrade or enter the county road right-of-way. As a requirement of the road use agreement, the developer will be required to provide an appropriate performance bond to ensure that the obligations under the agreement are met. Condition number 6, the developer is required to enter into a municipal services agreement with the county and be in compliance with the terms of the agreement for the construction of an engineer's designed roadway, where access is required from a public road allowance. Any and all improvements are required to be constructed in accordance with the county's design guidelines and construction standards. As a requirement of the municipal services agreement, the developer will be required to provide an appropriate performance bond to ensure that the terms of the agreement are met. Number 7, the developer is required to provide a detailed traffic management plan and precondition survey for all construction activities and to assess current road conditions. Number 8, all turbines and above ground structures are required to meet the minimum setback of 40 meters or 130 feet from the center of any Cypress County public roadway. Number 9, all storage and equipment located within the temporary laydown yard are required to meet the minimum setback of 40 meters from the center of any public roadway. And number 10, upon decommissioning of the project, a copy of the Reclamation Planning Commission wishes to have, there's an option there to postpone. So are there any questions or discussion on any of the conditions? We go down each permit.
Open the floor to the applicant. Any discussions, concerns, questions?
Yeah, just a couple, if you don't mind. First 4, standard, I agree. Just to confirm on 5 and 6, are we separating these from the road use then? You're going to want the MSA and a road use agreement, even though the road use typically used to talk about the roads. The MSAs are going to talk about that? I'm just confused. Like, is there 2 documents we're going to have to enter into now?
Yes, we're going to have 2 agreements. So the road use agreement is going to be for the use of the roads. That'll be for the maintenance and those sorts of things. And then if there's a requirement to build any Cypress County Township or Range Road, those road improvements will be covered under a municipal services agreement. So we're
Okay.
just gonna separate those two out.
Okay, so that's clarified. And then another question. So, unless I'm wrong, are we not going to need to get approach consents? That'll just be in the MSA, because it talks about coming off of roadways, public roads. So, will the MSA offset approach consents?
So the approach consents will be under the terms of the road use agreement.
So that's a yes. So once we enter the road use, we will not have to file typical approach consents like everybody else in the county does.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll look at those terms, and so, there's could be questions within, but we'll leave that for a different forum. And then the only other thing is just on the very last one. I like the add-on and the wording with whatever's applicable at the time. And just to be clear, like, you can't get a rec cert right now. So, just as long as everybody realizes that, like, that's a condition, but under today's standards, you couldn't get a rec cert. So, you have the term. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that requirement, because it does say of the time of decommissioning. So, just to be clear, like, it's not like an oil and gas well where there is a reclamation certificate by Alberta Environment. So, as long as everybody's understanding of what the... Oh, okay, cool.
And I think it's consistent with the condition that we had for the Cypress wind project. So if there's not a reclamation certificate that's needed, what is the equivalent to that? So that's why we had that fine wording in there.
Again, it came up in the public hearing. There's another topic that came up, so just wanted to reiterate. So, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Okay. Any discussion from the planning commission? Questions?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the decommissioning there a little bit. Just, I know you guys have got action plans. I know we've talked about it. You're trying to get things in. I guess one of the things that I keep hearing all the time, when this stuff gets decommissioned, what are your plans to get rid of it? Like, where are you going to dispose of it? Or have you even looked that far ahead for, because the way it is, we don't want it in our dumps, so obviously that's a big question right now, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's 30 years from now, so it's hard to say. Yeah, they're looking at all sorts of new stuff, recycling of blades, and like there's the steel, right, which is all recyclable. When you look at a turbine, I think it's up to like 80% of it is recyclable materials. So most of it's going to be recycled, actually.
There's way too much value in a turbine for it to end up in a landfill. It just won't. Like, people can think what they want because they haven't seen it, but even the ones that have been decommissioned, there's too much valuable material in them for it to end up at the local dump.
I think he's talking about the blades that we're seeing.
All
videos
yeah,
of.
so the blades themselves, yeah. So the blades, they're looking at new recyclable blades. They just did them about 2 months ago. They developed new recyclable blades. We haven't picked a vendor yet, so I'm not so sure, but yeah, 30 years from now, I don't know. I mean, we'll have.
So your first one doesn't have recyclable blades on it?
No, not at this point. It's literally just coming out now. It's just new technology that they're going to be recyclable. I think the first project that had them was very, very recently for an offshore project. So they'd be recyclable or dealt with, appropriately, and it's part of the decommissioning plan, But yeah, it's 30 years from now. It's hard to say.
So in your opinion, will recyclable blades become the new standard?
Probably not for a few years, but I think it will become standard. Yeah. Probably not, this year, next year, but it's certainly coming. Yeah.
Is there fiberglass construction in that? Fiberglass and steel?
Yeah.
Or fiberglass?
Just fiberglass. Yeah.
Just fiberglass?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Go ahead, Michelle.
It's not a question, it's just more of a comment. I've been sitting here listening to you talk, and you keep saying, oh, well, it's 30 years from now. I realize that to us right now, this probably doesn't mean anything, but we have to think of what's going to happen in 30 years, and you just seem a little nonchalant about it, like, oh, well, that's not my problem.
Yeah, I guess, I don't mean that it's not my problem. I just mean I don't know. Like, we filed the decommissioning plan. Lays everything out in detail of what we're going to do. Like, are these going to go to your dump in 30 years? I don't know. The question that. But yeah, it's hard to answer.
Okay, I guess we'll move on to each individual application.
So each of the applications, I've reviewed the site plan for each. I'm just going to go through them. I'm not going to have Ingrid scroll through each one, but on each of the site plans, they've plotted out the wind turbine within the quarter section. They've drawn a blue circle around the 80-meter diameter for the turbine blade, and then there's a further buffer zone for the 4 times of the height of the turbine blade, which is a requirement of our land use bylaw. So they've complied with all of those setback requirements. So we'll start with 22/42, and I apologize if I'm wrong on this name, under Dina Hollock. Legal land description, Northwest 510-2, property zoning is A2 agriculture. The WSP flood risk report identified a minor overland flood risk, and the application is for the installation of 1 wind turbine.
Okay, discussion or move? Nigel, you moving on? Okay. Nigel moves approval of 22/42 as presented. All those in favor? Carried.
22/43 is Dina Hollock, Northeast 510-2, west of 4th. Land use zoning is A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and again the installation of 1 wind turbine.
Dan moves approval of 22/43 with the conditions as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, 22/44.
That one is under Gerald Auto, Northeast 910-2, west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and for 1 wind turbine.
Jeremy moves approval of 22/44. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, 22/45.
I think I said this last time, but I feel like an auctioneer again. 22/45, Hatarian Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southeast 411-2, west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and installation of 1 wind turbine.
Okay, Michelle moves approval of 22/45 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. 22/46.
Hatarian Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 1911-2, west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Lloyd moves approval of 22/46. All those in favor? Carried. 22/47.
Hatarian Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 811-2, west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Okay, Nigel moves approval of 22/47. All those in favor? Carried. 22/48.
Hatarian Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 1811-2, west of 4, A2 agriculture, minor overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Okay, Dan moves approval of 22/48 as presented. Those in favor? Carried. 22/49.
Hatarian Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 1211-2, west of 4, A2 agriculture, minor overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Jeremy moves approval of 22/49 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. 22/50.
Hatarian Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southeast 1111-2, west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Michelle moves approval of 22/49 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. 22/50.
51, I think, right?
51. I
Yeah.
apologize. That was 50.
Hatarian Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 211-2, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Okay, Lloyd moves approval of 22/51. All those in favor? Carried. 22/52.
Hatarian Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 1211-2, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Nigel moves approval of 22/52. All those in favor? Carried. 22/53.
Hatarian Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 411-2, A2 agriculture, minor overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Dan moves approval of 22/53. All those in favor? Carried. 22/54.
Hatarian Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 1711-2, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Jeremy moves approval of 22/54. All those in favor? Carried. 22/55.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 21-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, medium overland flood risk, and installation of 1 wind turbine.
Michelle moves approval of 22/55. All those in favor? Carried. 22/56.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 35-10-2, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Lloyd moves approval of 22/56. All those in favor? Carried. 22/57.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 33-10-2, A2 agriculture, medium flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Nigel moves approval of 22/57. All those in favor? Carried. 22/58.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northwest 35-10-2, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Dan moves approval of 22/58. All those in favor? Carried. 22/59.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 5-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and installation of 1 wind turbine.
Jeremy moves approval of 22/59. All those in favor? Carried. 22/60.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 34-10-2, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Michelle moves approval of 22/60. All those in favor? Carried. 22/61.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 15-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, medium overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Lloyd moves in favor of 22/61. All those in favor? Carried. 22/62.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northwest 22-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, installation of 1 wind turbine, and a temporary laydown yard.
Nigel moves approval of 22/62 as presented. All those in favor? Carried. 22/63.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southeast 9-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Dan moves approval of 22/63. All those in favor? Carried. 22/64.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 22-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, medium overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Jeremy moves approval of 22/64. All those in favor? Carried. 22/65.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northwest 15-10-2, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Michelle moves approval of 22/65. All those in favor? Carried. 22/66.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southeast 5-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Lloyd moves approval of 22/66. All those in favor? Carried. 22/67.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northwest 29-10-2, A2 agriculture, minor overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Nigel moves approval of 22/67. All those in favor? Carried. 22/68.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 29-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Dan moves approval of 22/68. All those in favor? Carried. 22/70. 69. Apologies. 69.
2269, Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southeast 32-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, minor overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Jeremy moves approval of 22/69. All those in favor? Carried. 22/70.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northwest 4-10-2, A2 agriculture, minor overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Michelle moves approval of 22/70. All those in favor? Carried. 22/71.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 33-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Lloyd moves approval of 22/71. All those in favor? Carried. 22/72.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northwest 21-10-2 west of 4, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Nigel moves approval of 22/72. All those in favor? Carried. 22/73.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 28-10-2, A2 agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Dan moves approval of 2273. All those in favor? Carried. 2274.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 3092, west of 4, A2 Agriculture, minor overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Jeremy moves approval of 2274. All those in favor? Carried. 2275.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northwest 3092, west of 4, A2 Agriculture, minor overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Michelle moves approval of 2275. All those in favor? Carried. 2276.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 3292, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Lloyd moves approval of 2276. All those in favor? Carried. 2277.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 3392, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Nigel moves approval of 2277. All those in favor? Carried. 2278.
We're almost there. Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southeast 3292, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Dan moves approval of 2278. All those in favor? Carried. 2279.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northwest 7111, west of 4, A2 Agriculture, minor overland flood risk, installation of 1 wind turbine.
Jeremy moves approval of 2279. All those in favor? Carried. Thanks for jumping in there, Jerry. Okay, 2280.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 18112, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, and 1 wind turbine.
Michelle moves approval of 2280. All those in favor? Carried. 2281.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 2610-2 west of 4, A2 Agriculture, medium overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Lloyd moves in favor of 22. Lloyd moves approval of 22/81. All those in favor? Carried. 2282.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 1510-2, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Nigel moves approval of 2282. All those in favor? Carried. 2284.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Northeast 3292 west of 4, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Dan moves approval of 2284. All those in favor? Carried. 2285.
Murray Ellen Nesdali, Northeast 3910-2 west of 4, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 wind turbine.
Jeremy moves approval of 22/85. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 22/86.
Richard and Robert Porter, Southeast 17112 west of 4, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Nigel moves approval of 2286. All those in favor? Carried. 2287.
RP Ranching Co. Ltd., Southwest 10112 west of 4, A2 Agriculture, minor overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Nigel moves approval of 2287. All those in favor? Carried. Nigel's ambitious.
2288 RP Ranching Co. Ltd., Southeast 9112, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Dan moves approval of 2287. All those in favor? Carried. 2288.
89, sorry.
89.
Yep. William and Marion Frymark, Northwest 1110-2, A2 Agriculture, minor overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Jeremy moves approval of 2289. All those in favor? Carried. 2290.
Brethren Church of Elkwater, Southwest 1010-2 west of 4, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Michelle moves approval of 22/90. All those in favor? Carried. 2291.
And final one is William and Marion Frymark, Northwest 1110-2 west of 4, A2 Agriculture, low overland flood risk, 1 turbine.
Lloyd moves approval of 2291. All those in favor? Carried. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to disrupt the flow because, it's just how it goes. But I just would like to go back and just kind of review, I think it's application 22/89. I think the diagram that we have actually shows 2 turbines on that property.
So I think that's the one where they're having to replot. We just didn't have the up-to-date site plan.
Okay, so there is only 1 turbine on that okay.
Correct.
So, okay.
Good catch.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. $22.83 was covered, was it not? Did we skip 2283? We got it, didn't we?
So 2283 was the application for the substation, which
it's out.
we have to wait until that approval comes forward, so it's been taken out.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, that's got it for that. So your development applications have been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there's now a 3-week appeal period that the public may appeal the issuance of this permit. The permit will be advertised in the Cypress Courier newspaper for a duration of 3 consecutive weeks. If no appeal is filed within 21 days from the date of issue, the development permit will become valid at that time. If you have any questions, you can address them with the development officer after today's meeting. Thank you very much.
So just a quick note, because we have a few new planning commission members. So in the event that there is an appeal received within that 21-day appeal period, so for both wind and solar projects, if an appeal is launched, it doesn't come before our local appeal board. It'll actually go before a provincial authority. So it'll go before the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, just so everyone knows that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Well, that was exciting. Okay, next meeting, May 10th, 10 a.m. Adjourn the meeting.